What's up, everyone? Welcome to my corner of the internet. I'm your host, Ryan Cramer, and this is Crossover Commerce, presented by Ping Pong Payments, the leading global payments provider helping sellers keep more of their hard-earned money. Hello, everyone, once again to another great episode of Crossover Commerce. I'm your host, Ryan Cramer, and this is my corner of the internet, where I bring you the best and brightest minds in the Amazon and e-commerce industry, bringing you actionable insights to help apply to your business today to scale your brands to the level you wanted to do it. That's why you got into e-commerce. That's why you got into entrepreneurship. That's why you are here listening to this amazing podcast. Without further ado, before we get started, of course, we want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Ping Pong Payments. Again, Ping Pong Payments has now helped over 1 million customers worldwide scaling their brands by saving money internationally by sending and receiving money in cross-border payments, whether it's paying out your suppliers, your manufacturers, your employees, your VAs worldwide, or if you're just selling on multiple marketplaces, whether it's on Amazon or Shopify or eBay, wherever you might be selling your goods as a brand. Use Ping Pong Payments to help consolidate and make cross-border payments more effectively. Save more money, put it towards your bottom line. That being said, you could sign up today for free in the show notes below, or you can, if you're listening to this, those will be in the show notes. If you're watching this live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, you can also sign up in the link provided in the comment section. Because this is live, ask your questions. Go ahead and fire them away. Tell us where you're listening from. Tell us how your thoughts are. If you disagree, agree. This is an open forum. If you happen to be listening to this live, or if you want to just go ahead and connect with our guest or myself, you can do so again on social media. But all of our episodes are located on our website. Just check out usa.pingpongx.com/podcast as well. That being said, now that that's off the table, again, I apologize yesterday for people who are looking for our episode. It's funny to know that the internet has so many different effects on so many different ways of in podcasting in general. And I just wanted to say, because of the outage on Facebook and WhatsApp and Instagram, it allowed me to not go live to any of those platforms, and in turn it affected the platform we use for podcasting. So that being said, we actually moved that episode to Thursday this week. That would be today would be October 5th. So that would be October 7th. So if you're looking for that episode, that's going to be actually after that. So 163 will come after 164. Just work with me, people. It's a live, living, breathing organism that we're working with, especially in e-commerce. You have to pivot as we go and say in the industry. So that being said, this episode, as you saw in the introduction, how a $1 million brand becomes a $10 million brand. That is something that we're going to be talking about today. And of course, I like to think that you hear all the great stories of putting sweat equity into business. You come up with a fantastic idea. You come up with a killer name. You trademark it. You find your group, your people, your loyal following. You get it to that level of, great, I made it to $1 million. Now what? That's a lot of people. That's a question that a lot of people get to that mark, and if they truly are trying to build a scalable brand, that is the kind of mentality of, now we've got some sort of success behind ourselves. How can we make that scale to the next level? And again, 1 million to 10 million, it can be any sort of number. It could be 2 to 6, or it can be 10 to 50. It can be any sort of number that you yourself as an entrepreneur or e-commerce brand are trying to come up with. But how do you take that next step, that next level? Well, we're going to talk about today. And again, as we alluded to it in kind of the introduction, we're going to be talking with not just entrepreneur and founder of an agency, but he is also a podcaster himself. So we'll get lots of insight from him. His name is Clymer of Electric Eye, and him and his team, he's actually been in the space for him and his team create Shopify-powered sales machines from a strategic design, development, and marketing decisions. Like I said, he's also a host of the podcast Honest Ecommerce, which is weekly. They provide online store owners with honest, actionable advice to increase your sales and grow their business. So, of course, if you're a friend of the show and you love listening to this podcast, you want to make sure that you subscribe to that podcast as well. Without further ado, going ahead and kick off this episode with the one and only Clymer of Electric Eye. Chase, welcome to Crossover Commerce.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course. Yeah. So before we get started, where are you tuning in from? Where's your base of operations? What not basement, or what area are you from? If you are.
I would prefer to be in the basement and maybe be a little bit cooler. No, so
Right.
we are a fully remote agency, but funny enough, almost all of us are here in Columbus, Ohio. So that would, I
Really?
guess, would be
Okay.
the home base of operations would be here in Columbus. But yeah, we went fully remote like about 3 months before COVID was even a term that I had heard. So
Really?
we
Okay.
lucked out a little bit there because it didn't really affect us as much because we were putting a lot of work in place before that to basically be like remote first as like kind of a business decision. Um, with that being said, like we are looking at getting another office, but it's like just to get out of the house, somewhere to have internet if yours goes out of, if it goes out of whack. Nothing mandatory at all, but yeah, we put a lot of work into those processes, making remote first, like whatever. And like with that being said, like our project manager was down in Guatemala for like 3 weeks, and you wouldn't even know.
That's amazing. Well, I think there's so many fascinating stories like that, and it was cool that you guys went that route before even again people were quote unquote forced to, and I think that it's changed this culture. There's been a lot of articles that have come out recently that is that honeymoon period over, or people really want to get back to the office. And again, that's kind of an evolving process. But Columbus, Ohio, I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana, so we're just a hop, skip, and jump on I-70 to each other. So that being said, that's really cool that you guys are remote first as an agency. What did you do before that? Were you always in e-commerce, or did you kind of find your way there?
Oh man, I've been in digital marketing probably for 12 or 13 years, which most people wouldn't believe. So once upon a time, I was in a touring band, and being in a band is fantastic. You get to see the country, you get to make some really, really cool connections and people that are you're going to be friends with for life. But it doesn't pay your bills unless you're really doing it the right way. So the whole time I was in the band, I was freelancing. I was doing layout designs for a magazine. They asked for help with the website. I started learning website stuff. Then I picked up a few other clients and I was building their websites. And now they're like, I need help with marketing. So the whole time I was touring, I was cutting my teeth in the digital space, learning the ins and outs of all this stuff. Fast forward, the band was, we decided to hang it up. So I had all of this background and experience in digital. So I kind of went all in on that. And I was like a professional freelancer for a couple of years. And then eventually my business partner, who, funny enough, we met from when I was in the band. Me and him designed the album art of my band's first two albums together. That's literally how we met. He was saying, "Hey man, I've got all these clients on Shopify and I need help with marketing, and you know how Facebook ads work. Like, I think we can do something here." And then next thing you know, like we had 6 or 7 retainer clients, and we pulled a name out of a hat. It was more like a list of names that we decided upon, and then Electric Eye was born.
Oh my god! First and foremost, we got to know what instrument were we playing, or were you the singer?
I was playing bass in the band. They were lucky I wasn't the singer.
Slapping the bass, okay.
Yeah.
And the name of the band was.
It's for everyone to Google because I never give it away.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll leave that as a cliffhanger
They gotta
for
leave them
those who
wanting
are.
more. But the album art
Yeah,
is in the
exactly.
background of my video for anyone that has a keen eye.
There you go. Okay. We'll have to keep in kind of deduce from there. So kind of by not by force, but almost kind of all these people are you were learning along the way. You had some time on your hands as you're traveling because obviously it's a going from city to city, traveling around on bus or van or whatever that might be. So you're learning along the way. This was back in what era, or like where I say era, what time period is this?
Back when MySpace was still a thing is when I was still doing like learning stuff. MySpace kind of stopped being a thing as the band was wrapping up. What I was doing more often back then, I was doing more WordPress projects. To be honest, I was working a lot more with service-based business. Which is super hilarious because all of those skills translated over to starting my own business a few years later. Because obviously I own an agency and that's service, so all those things are definitely very translatable. But at the beginning, when we were kind of getting things started with Electric Eye, I will tell you that I was kind of scared of e-commerce, mostly because I was scared of, you know, with WordPress, at least my history, my understanding of payments and whatnot was, there's a lot more going on there, and one misplaced semicolon could like ruin someone's entire day, and like they wouldn't make any sales, and it'd be my fault, and I didn't want to take that responsibility. Enter Shopify, and I was like in there checking things out, and then I immediately was just like, well, this thing's fantastic, I can't break it, let's run.
That's true. Well, and that's the thing. I think that's kind of like surprised a lot of people. I come back from, again, this was 2014 and 15. So for the Amazon world, I always call it, the beginning of the Wild West era of like anything goes, you throw it on there, it sells, so on and so forth. As long as you're competent, have a listing, you get the information out there, and anyone could sell it. But back in 2014 and 15, I was using Magento, and I had no idea as well. So I remember learning from our team of maybe 2 or 3 and our developer, and he said, if you press these buttons or you click save or if you press publish, you will break these websites. So they put me in a sandbox basically on the back end, and I had that same fear, Chase, is of if I created something or if I created a coupon code and it was really 100% off instead of 10, or I put that extra 0 at the end, that was really going to get me in trouble in terms of sales. And you can't take that back. It's not something that you can say, actually, that's not the price. Whatever is in the cart is in the cart, and that digital transaction is going to happen. I've also broken websites because of so much traffic. So I definitely relate in terms of that kind of competency in terms of. But Shopify, for people who may not have dipped their toes into it, like what is you say you can't break it, or it's almost like so simple. Is that really what draws a lot of people to it? Like across the board, and why you're hearing so much about it is just the simplicity of it, or in the customability of it, or the ability to customize it. Is that what really draws people to it ultimately?
I think that, well, historically, what drew me to it isn't the same thing that it makes it a power player in the game today. What drew me to it back then was obviously ease of use, and it definitely made it a lot easier for someone I'm not a developer by trade. You know what I mean? If I was to say what I'm the best at, it's probably strategy. And so when we were getting the agency started, we weren't as custom as we are now with kind of the development side of things. But that none of that really matters. Let's fast forward to now. What's good about Shopify now, right? So there are a bunch of different platforms out there. You've got your marketplaces like Amazon, eBay, Etsy, and all that stuff. Those are a completely different style of business than building a brand and selling direct to your own customer. So when you're going that route, you can build it on any platform that you want. I'm just going to save you a lot of work. Start on Shopify, and you're not going to regret it. Any limitation out there that someone is telling you exists about Shopify is a limitation that's in their own mind. You can do any sort of customization that you want with Shopify. They are rapidly expanding all of the API endpoints, so you can honestly do whatever you want within Shopify. With all that said, it's like, is what you want to do on Shopify even something you should be doing on Shopify? That's usually where people aren't making any sense. Like, Shopify is built specifically for the direct consumer model. You're selling a product to an end customer. Like, anytime you get further and further away from that simple statement, you're getting further and further away from Shopify being the right platform for you. But everybody's trying to put a square peg into a round hole and then say the platform sucks, which is just, you're trying to break it with your idea.
Great. So is that maybe the hardest part of e-commerce for a customer or client, if they're coming to you and they're saying, I want to do this, and ultimately you just have to say why, like almost keep it simple, stupid, of people know what they want, or when they come to your product or page or product and they find you, ultimately you want to make that as seamless of a transition as possible from getting it to that click to the cart, for have them check out as quickly as possible. Is that really the hardest part, is to kind of almost try to dumb it down for people instead of having them create those intricacies, if you will?
I mean, if you're a startup, and I'm going to say a startup is like anywhere from $0 to $1 million a year, you are probably overcomplicating way too many things. Like, you don't need a custom theme when you're that young of a business. You don't need a crazy feature custom like user experience when you're that young of a brand. What you need to do is you need to invest all of your time and energy and excess capital into marketing and advertising and building out a sales flywheel that actually will propel your business to the next level. All of the other stuff doesn't matter. People that are like just rigidly like watching their KPIs when they're a brand that small, like it doesn't matter. Like if at $1 million a year, if you're like watching your conversion rate and like trying to make assumptions on like decisions you're making on your website, all of that is your gut feeling. You can't get a statistical significant like result from CRO at doing $1 million a year, unless you have just the world's lowest AOV and your sales are through the roof. But now I'm getting a little more like controversial, but like basically you need a lot to do actual conversion rate optimization. You need conversions, and then you need a lot of conversions to say that the one choice was actually better. And that is very rare for $1 million a year business to even get any kind of data like around that. The coffee just kicked in and I'm like going off on tangents, so I apologize.
No, we're good.
I'll answer your question though.
Yeah.
I'll answer your question. What's the hardest part of e-commerce? I don't think it's the technology choice at all. People make that harder than it should be. And hopefully, by the content I put out and yourself and all of your other guests, like I feel like we're just trying to point people in the right direction. It's like, just make a choice, move on. Like that stuff doesn't matter for a long time. But what is the hardest part of e-commerce, which is what I believe a lot of entrepreneurs do mistakenly, is they launch and then they go, why isn't it selling? Because they never put in work about vetting the product and seeing if they had product market fit. That is truly the hardest part of e-commerce is getting that kind of hard to describe intangible product market fit thing. It's a thing where you know it when you have it, but when you don't, it's just you can't figure out how to grasp it. But some tricks I've learned along the way from interviewing a lot of founders that have gone through that struggle, and just kind of my experience in the industry is it literally always starts with interviewing the people that are buying from you and asking them all about what it is that they enjoy about your product, and then interviewing the people that aren't buying from you and asking them why they're not buying your product. Sometimes it comes down to positioning or the offer involved or a bunch of other things that you don't know because you're not your customer. That's something that a lot of people need to understand. You are not your customer, so you need to ask your customer what they are thinking to then market things better for those ideal customers.
Absolutely. Well, that was kind of the funny thing too, is I gave this talk yesterday, believe it or not. I said the sneaky ways of like adding to your business and being profitable and adding to the bottom line. And I just said simply, a lot of people, believe it or not, are customers that are trying to be entrepreneurs. At the end of the day, they're just starting their business, where they're going to lose every single time they make a sale. And what I mean by that is their product costs are too high. There is no market fit. So they're literally sitting on an inventory that is not being sustainable or not at the velocity of what they need it to be. Their advertising costs are way too high. All these different things that at the end of the day, just bare minimum, they can't sell this product to make a profit. So what you were telling me is that it's one of those things that I'm kind of losing kind of the point I'm getting to is it's kind of fascinating that people are not looking at the product fit and like the solution that this product will yield. Correct? It's so simplistic in that realm of what is my product trying to achieve? Is it trying to make me feel a certain way or to fix a problem? Or what's the ultimate North Star? And they kind of lose that. It's just, hey, I think that there's a keyword search, it's high keyword search. I'm going to create a product that fits into that category and I'm going to sell a ton. Well, it doesn't differentiate itself. And that's kind of that next level of how is it going to separate itself from every other thing out there? Is that more or less what you're trying to say?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I think it's just people. It's entrepreneurs and it's younger entrepreneurs. They tend to focus more on product and things that don't matter, like the website design or their app stack, where they need to be focused on the product and the customers more. So they need to focus on where are those customers? How can I get in front of them? How can I get their feedback? How can I use that feedback to iterate upon my product so I can start to build out this flywheel to where the goal, and where here's like a litmus test of whether or not you have product market fit is, are strangers on the internet buying your product? It's pretty much that simple. Not your dad, not your brother. It's like literal people you've never met. Are they giving you their hard-earned money to buy your product? And at that point, then you're probably onto something, and you should start to double down on what's working.
Right. So in that regards, what is that next step? We were talking about, hey, maybe I found that product, strangers are starting to buy it, whether I'm on Amazon, whether I'm on my own website, and I'm starting to see results come in, right? You said a startup is anywhere from $0 to $1 million. So I'm still a startup, but I've achieved that ceiling, if you will, of a startup success. That's a lot of hard work, and we're not mitigating like the hard work it takes to get there. But I think that next kind of jump, if you will, is where a lot of people either get lost or they're not sure, where do I turn? Like, how do I make this scalable? How do I make it enhanced? What is that thing that you tend to tell either your customers or listeners or anything like that? What do you think it is that takes that brand from 1 million to 10 and scalable?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the sake of this, the next step of this conversation, we're going to assume that, a couple of years or maybe a year, if you're really, really good at this, have gone by, and you're starting to get some KPIs going to where, you're projecting roughly $1 million a year, right? That's just an arbitrary number because people love the word $1 million. You could do the same process at less of a scale or at more of a scale, as far as kind of velocity goes and revenue. But we're just going to use $1 million because it's easy, right? So let's now dive into the answer of that question. How do brands go from $1 million a year to $10 million a year? Data and strategy. That's it. You guys can end the podcast. We're done. But no, let me tell you why. All right. So
that's it, folks. Yeah. Thanks for listening.
So
we'll tune in, and that's it.
There are some certain KPIs that drive e-commerce businesses. There's 3 of them actually that matter. So there's 3 KPIs that truly matter to drive an e-commerce business, right? So it is your conversion rate, your average order value, and your sessions, right? And you're going to take a look at these numbers. We look at the numbers at the agency over the last 30 days. Unless you've got a really sporadic sales calendar where it's like heavily in one certain place, then maybe do an average over the last 12 months. But we usually just do the last 30 days. And so you take the average order value for the last 30 days, you take your conversion rate for the last 30 days, then you multiply it by the sessions that you had in the last 30 days. And when you multiply them all together, you get your sales for the last 30 days, basically, because that's math, right? So now you've got a baseline, right? So why does that matter? So you got a baseline here with 3 KPIs that output your top level sales. So let's drill into each of those KPIs and talk about what they really mean and why they're important, and why this simple equation is going to change how you think about e-commerce and how you're going to scale your business. So the first one that I mentioned there, right, is conversion rate. People oftentimes really, this is a number people really want to manipulate, and that's fantastic. It is a big lever. I would say it's probably the second hardest lever to pull in e-commerce to really do something. But let's start talking through like an example here, right? So Ryan, you have a widget company and you guys are doing pretty good, and you're basically doing $1 million a year in sales, right? So in the last 30 days, you had a 2% conversion rate. Your average order value is $75, and you're getting around 60,000 sessions a month, right? Some real simple data. You multiply all those things together, you're doing about $90K a month in monthly sales. You're doing about $1 million a year in sales, right? It's 1080 for the math guys out there. I also have a spreadsheet in front of me that makes this really easy. So
Chase is cheating on his test that he's giving, so we're good.
Yeah, memorizing how these work is a goal of mine eventually, so I can rattle this off without a spreadsheet. But for the time being, I have a spreadsheet, and you can get the spreadsheet off me. Just email me, and I'll give you the spreadsheet.
There you go.
So now let's kind of dive into your conversion rate. Your conversion rate's 2%, right? So let's make some hypothetical statements about your widget company. For the last year, you've done exactly what I recommended, which was you focused purely on trying to get people through the door. You kind of let the website take a back burner. You guys used an off-the-shelf theme that you found that you liked, that was a good enough solution for the time being. But because you can also look at some other data, you're like, yeah, the website's definitely slow, especially on mobile. We can see a huge difference between mobile conversion rate and our desktop conversion rate. We know that our customer journey is a bit clunky because while this is a responsive theme, this journey wasn't built like for our customers to do our thing, especially on mobile. Like, you see a lot of area of opportunity from your data to like, yeah, I think if we invested in the website and we improved the customer journey, we made it faster, we made it, make more sense. We can see a jump to the conversion rate, right? So let's just say that whole thing is a home run because you hire the best, the best team you can afford, or you guys just like have that on lock in house. So you put all this time and money and invest in improving the conversion rate. So now you've jumped your conversion rate from 2% to 3%, right? But nothing else in your business has changed, right? What that's going to do is that's going to take your monthly sales from $90,000 a month to $135,000 a month, and that's a $500,000 improvement on just focusing on one KPI, right?
Right.
So that lever is hard, and it is doable. But the next one I think is the one that most people overlook, and it's probably the easiest to actually improve at times. So that is the average order value. The average order value is actually like an insanely large driver of revenues, and it's as simple as this to increase your average order value, right? Bundles, cross sells, and upsells. It's that simple. And I don't know why anyone else is trying to make it any harder. Think about your customer, think about your products, and think about what more would help them. What goes well with that product? You know what I mean? So this is where you got to get a little more hypothetical. So Ryan's widget company, it lends itself to actually like you're going to use more of these widgets because they're so sweet. So Ryan invents a really awesome kind of widget bundle builder where you get, you buy 3 widgets for a certain deal, and the experience is great. And now that's built into their new website, right? So that ricochets their $75 ricochet increases. That increases their $75 average order value to like up around $100, right? So just that improvement alone, let's pretend the conversion rate never changed and all they did was focus on that, right? So that's going to increase things about $400,000 a year. You know what I mean? It takes it from $90K a month to about $121 a month, right? So, those are 2 different strategies that you can use to kind of increase things. But this is where most brands go first, which is actually the third step that I'm talking about, which is sessions, right? I'm sure you know where I'm going here. It's paid traffic.
Right.
It's its own
More
marketing.
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
More people,
Everyone's
more
like,
sales.
I want more sales. They want to go straight to media buying, which is a way to do it. But let's say you went straight to media buying and you didn't focus on those other KPIs and you invested all of your budget into, doubling your amount of traffic per year, which is A, doable, and B, about as much as you want to do. You never really want to have your mix be more paid than it is organic because things start to get a little weird. But let's say that you do that, right? You double your traffic. Everyone, I think, should know this, that your sales will double, right? If everything else stays the same, your sales will double. The sad part about it is your conversion rate will actually go down a little bit because all this new traffic isn't as familiar and it's not going to convert as well at that historical rate. But, you're still making another $1 million a year and you just focus there. But what if you did this the way that I'm proposing and the way that we do for all of our clients and the way that I tell everyone to do is you focus on the other KPIs first. You focus on making that experience as amazing as possible. So you try to get that conversion rate from 2% to 3% or whatever your starting point is to the best position you can get it. And then you also focus on making within the customer journey, you have these upsell, cross-sell, and bundling opportunities that make sense, right? And it feels helpful because I'll break it down for you. People like to buy, but they don't like to be sold. So when the experience on their website, it feels like they're getting taken advantage of, and it's jarring. It takes them out of the whole shopping experience because it's just like some pop-up that's a different color, different fonts. It seems clunky. That's not going to really work. But if you invest the time and energy and you do it the right way to where this feels natural and I feel like they're actually helping me, you will see raises to your average order value. So you did that as well. So you focused on the conversion rate, you focused on the average order value, you made improvements to your user experience, you made improvements to your offer, and then you go and focus on improving your sessions, which is, usually people are doing this through paid ads, Facebook, Google. Let's be real, that's what they're doing. But if you do this in the order that I'm proposing here, you're going to see an increase of your monthly sales go from $90,000 a month to $364,000 a month. That's a 300% improvement. So now your yearly sales are about $1 million a year, going up to $3.2 million a year. So you're looking at like a realistic 3x improvement, because these 3 KPIs are compounding when you do the work on each of them individually. So I just ranted for a good 20 minutes, I think. Ryan, questions?
No, I was gonna say it was only 10. We're good. No, and that's the beauty of like being able to look at the clock. No, all makes sense, and I think it's super valuable. This is why I didn't interject, is because numbers don't lie. At the end of the day, following data ultimately will lead you to success. You have to know your numbers inside and out, and that's kind of what I alluded to earlier, is knowing your numbers in terms of what your spend is, what your product cost is, but then also knowing just traffic to your website. Like I said, you can look at sessions, you can look at paid media, you can look at abandoned cart rates, you can look at all that stuff in those tools that we alluded to through Shopify, through Amazon, all these kinds of things. Amazon's a little bit more protective of data, but on your own website, you can see how many people are abandoning carts or what their average order size. This is just simple math, and these are spreadsheets. Like you say, you can reach out to Chase, and he'll connect you with simple math building skills of, this is the sheet, this is how you build it out, and this is how you compound it. It all makes sense. I think that you're right. The number one thing that I hear a lot of people is I want more eyeballs and I want more conversions. Therefore, I'm going to make my spend larger to get their eyeballs onto my website so that that conversion rate just stays true. They don't work on the conversion itself, like the rate at which you are converting. That doesn't come first. And then the average order per that customer, or how many widgets that customer is purchasing, they don't focus on that either. So per transaction, the things that you can actually have a hand in without spending money is those kinds of 2 areas, which I think is super important that you said. So once you build that and optimize those, that's where the more, obviously, if you double the amount of people that come to your website, then that in theory, again, math, should double the amount of conversions you're talking about, or triple, or whatever you're doing. So it all makes sense to me. Why aren't people doing it? That's the question.
Because there's a few reasons, right? It's because I believe that there are consultants out there that will just take people's money and do what they say, which works sometimes. It's not the way that we run things at Electric Eye. We are very honest, we're very consultative, and we want to make sure it'll make sense. Like, we're going to look at these numbers before we even start the engagement, and we're going to be like, look, this is where you're at. Like, we don't think this is a worthwhile investment for you, and here's why. Or, some people are too young in the game, and we have referrals off into our network, like, go work with these people on these things, maybe hopefully we'll see it next year and it will make more sense. I think a lot of people get just kind of wrapped up in like all the super winning case studies that they've seen about Facebook ads, like, $10,000 made me $1 million. That'll never happen again, everybody. The costs are through the roof. Facebook, you can't even report on that stuff anymore. They can hardly keep their servers online as of today. You're not going to see any sort of crazy wins on Facebook and Google. Like, that's akin to like waiting for your product to go viral, as opposed to having a strategy that's based in reality. You're probably looking at working with a really good media buyer. 5x return on ad spend is probably like something that you should be thankful for, because you can manipulate those numbers any way you want. Like, if you only want a return on ad spend that's like crazy numbers, fine, let's just not do any prospecting, but that's not good for the long term of your business. You know what I mean? If you're not acquiring new customers, you're going to burn out all of your existing customers, and that's not a good strategy either. So I think what it comes down to, like, why aren't more brands doing this, is just lack of education on it. Let's be real. E-commerce is still kind of in its infancy. Like, we're seeing a lot of amazing entrepreneurs investing in building businesses online these days versus kind of other more traditional outlets. And it's really cool getting a lot of cool minds out here working together. And just so hopefully I'll kind of pivot to just this concept here, which is, I don't need to do this for you. You don't need to hire my agency. Anyone can do this themselves. It's just really simple. And the simplicity of e-commerce makes this framework really powerful. It's like once you kind of get to that certain threshold, investing in your website, more importantly, investing in that user experience, making it fast, making it its best foot forward, making it have these kind of built-in offers to try to motivate more to get in the cart, will always be a better investment than dumping all of your money into paid advertising first.
Right. Well, that's so there's two schools of thought that I kind of come out with that. And I think that's 100%. I sympathize with that. And I think that's 100% correct when building and directing consumer brand. I also think that a lot of people, when they're building these brands nowadays, like the easiest way to do it. And again, the pros and cons that we always highlight on the show is go where eyeballs are. Essentially, it's built-in traffic. That's why people create brands on Amazon. They go and they optimize for keyword traffic. They stand out, and then in turn, what they have to do actually is to pour lots of money into advertising, and that's to launch products. That's to rank products. That's to fight the good fight with those eyeballs. And then on the other hand, I look at direct to consumer. I don't have to fight the good fight necessarily. I just have to drive traffic to my website that are more like minded and are ready to opt into my product, my solution, stand out on their own. Excuse me. And I see the two of building a brand and that power versus actually just fighting to stand out to a crowd in that power. So I see the conflicting nature of both of what we had just discussed is it's really hard to do that on a platform like an Amazon, but on other platforms like your own, that's actually the easiest way to actually have control over all those different levers, if you will. So I guess in theory, is that just the nature of the ease of launching products or brands? If I'm an entrepreneur, come to you and I say, hey Chase, I have this great idea around this widget company. I don't know where I should go to. I don't know if I should start my own website and on Shopify and then not know how to drive traffic to that? Or should I go to a platform like on Amazon where I know that it's built in, there's this micro niche, I can kind of optimize it from there and kind of go that route. Do you have clients that approach you in that regards, or does that happen at all anymore?
That's a great question. So, I'll make it a little bit simpler of an ask. Should I start my business on Amazon or should I start my business on like my own platform, like a Shopify, right? If someone was to ask me that question, I would probably say, test your product on Amazon to get some real-time feedback real fast, to see if people actually give a hoot about your product. And then if it does work there, then I would say, okay, it's a little more vetted. Maybe it's worthwhile investing in turning a product into an actual brand, because those are two different things. If your product at the end of the day is like a widget that's very commoditized, I probably wouldn't say focus on being a brand. Like maybe you just catch lightning in a bottle and you make some great sales on Amazon while it lasts, and you use that for, the next great idea you have. Like there's nothing wrong with that business model. But the brand building in like actually focus on, building something more that's just more than just a product. That's how you can charge, way more for these things, as opposed to on Amazon and most other marketplaces. It is potentially a race to the bottom, because I'm not going on Amazon and, searching for Louis Vuitton handbags. That's not where I'm going to buy that. But if I just need a fanny pack, sure, I'm going to go on there. I'm going to buy the cheapest one that's got good reviews. You know what I mean? Those are two different mindsets.
Right. Well, that's why I think the ecosystem, and because I have lots of guests who talk about this, building a brand on Amazon, I think it's still one of those things in its infancy where it's very difficult to do. I think, like you said, a lot of people go to that channel to either get something quick or to get something as inexpensive as they can. When they say like Ryan's widgets in front of that product, that doesn't really mean too much to too many people. Where if I just took that and I put it, if I just showed a person a picture of that product, they would never say that brand. They would just call it the product. But when you call, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, like things like Solo Stove or something right now of stands alone. I see these things pop up in all these social ads. It's something that actually has a name to it. And if I put that picture in front of me of that product, that brand name actually resonates with me because that's how they built it. It wasn't on an Amazon website, or at least not to my knowledge, but they have that name tied to the product in itself. It's not like it's standalone fireplace extreme or whatever they want to call it. It's something that has a name that's tied to it, and that's why I think the the conflict between having this brand framework, if you will, of how do I do it on either of these two platforms. I think it's actually honestly easier on a direct to consumer platform. The testing, like you mentioned, of if a product's going to be successful can actually be done quicker on Amazon too, and that's where a lot of eyeballs and conversions are happening too. Um, so when a client's coming to you and you have that conflict or that kind of that story with them, or they're kind of torn between the two, is there something that you see as more of a selling point where they're like, no, I get that. I think that's why I want to work with my direct to consumer site instead of on Amazon. Is there one thing that really pushes them to one side or another that really makes a brand or a entrepreneur really say, yeah, you're right. Maybe I'll do it this way.
I mean, no, there's not like one way. There's not one right way to do it. Like there's a million ways to start your business and to run your business, and you can make whatever choices you want to make. I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs and brand owners over the last 5 or 6 years, and they've done it all sorts of different ways. Some businesses started Amazon first, did not like the amount of risk that business model had them incur, i.e. Amazon is in full control. So then they started to invest in the direct consumer model, kind of using the profits from the Amazon first to kind of drive that. On the other side of things, I've seen people do direct consumer first, and then once that model was really efficient, they added in Amazon in some more strategic ways to increase velocity and brand awareness. Amazon could be considered almost akin as like getting into like a Target or a Walmart at sometimes to like for brand velocity. So if you got like a product that would really help from like hitting certain economies of scale, like there's nothing that's going to help you scale faster than like a marketplace that's as insane as Amazon. And then, there's people that they try to start both first, and then they kind of, they go, you know what, this one isn't working out, and they shutter it and they get off one of the platforms and just go all in on another. Like it really comes down to your product, the types of customers you're trying to sell it to, and kind of like what's your positioning and what's your offer.
Right. Ultimately, that's why any business or entrepreneur is in business, for those kinds of reasons. So, Chase, let me kind of take a step back and kind of ask a different thing. Did you ever sell online as a brand, or do you currently sell, or are you still, you operate your own brand underneath online, or sell any products on Amazon yourself?
I have not done anything on Amazon beyond like I got a seller account once, and I was flipping like some books, but wasn't anything too crazy. I learned enough to like understand the technology a bit more, but like I kind of have since put on blinders to Amazon and just really focused on like I know Shopify extremely well, and I'm going to stay in my lane. To answer your question, no, I don't have a serious brand that I run in the background or anything like that. And it comes down to that question. Well, that statement that I said before, which is the hardest thing to do in e-commerce is find product market fit. You really need to focus on it, and you need to do it. And it needs to be like a big consideration to kind of figure that out. And, until those numbers are working, it doesn't make really sense to focus on it. And I'm extremely good at helping brands that have already found that get to that next level. If starting a business and starting a brand was as easy as kind of some of the things I'm saying here on this call, like why would I be on this call? Why wouldn't I have started a dozen brands and done this a million times and be sipping martinis on the beach right now? Like that first key piece of the puzzle, finding product market fit, finding a product that resonates with consumers, that is extremely hard. And like, that's just not something that I want to focus on. Like I built an agency that helps brands that already have that, and we are doing insanely good things for them. So that's where I'm going to invest my time.
Right. So in that regards, not doing it yourself. And again, this is something I grapple with too. And a lot of people know that um, selling on Amazon and selling direct to consumer, excuse me, two separate things. I was fortunate enough to actually sell on behalf of another person, and that's where my experience come from. Do you ever think that when you talk about those things, or I guess this is a two-pronged question, I guess, of why go blind to just Amazon and only focus on Shopify? And then two, do you feel like not building a brand yourself and saying like, oh well, I did this myself? Do you feel like you're this is not a great question, but do you feel it like you're preaching to people who maybe they look at you and say, well, you haven't done it yourself. How do you know? Does that make sense? Like almost like imposter syndrome, but not truly.
Yeah. Okay. So first question first. No, I don't think I'm like going in blind or like it's more that we as an agency understand the power of niching down, and we are truly Shopify experts, and we have testimonials of all of our customers saying these guys know exactly what they're talking about when it comes to Shopify. But we also are very honest when they're like, "Do you know about this thing that tangentially relates to Shopify?" And we're usually like, "No, we don't know about it." It's like, would you like us to learn and we can figure it out together, or would you like us to like connect you to someone in our network that might know it? We're very, very, very good at the thing we do, and then we draw lines in the sand. Like, no, we don't. Those things aren't worth us learning. We don't need to build SOPs around that. We don't want to have, you know, I mean, that's really where it comes down to is like, I don't want to have an SOP built out to do the same thing 6 dozen times because we're good at 6 dozen platforms. That's 6 times more work. Or we can just be extremely good at Shopify and solve those problems for the customers that we want to work with and just become better and better and better and invest and then just build out more and more and more efficiencies within the platform that we're good at. To answer your second question, while I haven't had my own brand, between my partner and I, and since we started the agency, we've helped brands amass over $10 million in more additional sales through the efforts that we put in with them. And we've got case studies to back all that stuff up. So I don't think it's imposter syndrome anymore. Like, I know what I'm talking about works because we've done it for other businesses that had those KPIs already established that we could then manipulate upon and make some awesome decisions with them to help them grow their businesses.
Right. I mean, well, and that's what I thought too. It's always nice to hear people when they say that too, because when you get into podcasting or like, what's that point of view, right? Of you have to start somewhere, and because you're an agency and my company is a service provider, all those kinds of things, they help people scale at different levels. So that's why I always ask, do people still have that? Is that still a thing? And I think to a point, people still feel, I don't think that's a bad question. I think it's a reflective question of there's always more to continuously learn. But the best way to do it is just to do it again, whether it's on behalf of other people or do it yourself or your own brand. I think it's really an admirable thing to do. And that's where a lot of people are just doing on a day-to-day basis. As well. So maybe more of like a not a hypothetical question, but do you think it's more because of the moves that Shopify's making with its ties into social buying? For example, now you can buy directly through TikTok via Shopify. You can have a store and it can be purchased directly in app without leaving the platform. I believe it's still with Shopify and all of its networks of how it can tie into social selling and the customizations and everything like that. Do you ever think that it will compete to the point where it not overtakes, but it becomes the go-to platform other than Amazon? Does that make sense? Like I know the two they continuously get compared to each other, but do you think that there will be more people on Shopify when it's all said and done, whenever that is, than Amazon? Or do you think the two have just their own spaces? They really are their own separate entities and worlds.
Yeah, I mean, it's the latter that they while Shopify is building out an amazing, rich integration, all this functionality that they can do. It isn't Shopify isn't, also supplying you with customers. That's the big key differentiator here is when you get on Amazon, your product can get put in front of as many eyes as you can kind of make happen because you're not ever going to own that customer relationship. That's Amazon's customer. You're just, you're just borrowing it to sell your product and giving them a cut. Whereas on Shopify, they're not supplying you the customer. You're fronting all the costs, but you get 100% of the reward. So it's two completely different types of kind of platforms to get on. I think that Shopify is or will be extremely soon the number one e-commerce platform. I think it is. So like if you are going to go that route of direct consumer first, like I think Shopify is already in the lead on in that regard. So that is kind of an answer to your question. But then I do want to kind of circle back to something that you said earlier when you're talking about this like concept of imposter syndrome. I never get imposter syndrome when I am discussing how to help a brand grow. I know for a fact we can do it, and we've done it way too many times, right? I'm almost cocky in that regard. But I get imposter syndrome about other funny stuff. Like sometimes I'll get on a podcast and I'm not quite in the right headspace, and I'm like, why are people listening to what I have to say? Or sometimes when there's like a stage involved, that makes me feel weird. Or you'll end up in random situations where you're talking to random people kind of in a business sense, and you're like, how the heck did I end up in this room? Like, so that always exists at every level. But then, I kind of just look back on that track record and the cool stuff that we've done. It's like, wait, I deserve to be here. I know exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, absolutely. And that's kind of the point I was leading to. It's not for lack of, hey, everyone, by the way, if you haven't already figured it out that I think Chase is a fraud, that's not what I'm saying. It's more of like, hey, how do we feel like, there's a lot of people out there that just feel confident in what they have to talk about. And I think to a point, it takes a certain level of time for people to get to that notion, if you will. And people get there quicker than other people. So when you have your own podcast, or you are a guest on shows, or you are on stage in front of thousands of people, that can hit you in different ways, whether it's, again, you're in the comfort of your own home behind a microphone and there's no cameras. Of course, you can talk and spew as much as you want. But when it gets out in front, face to face in front of a client, do you get that sense of like nervousness? Like they'll see my face, or there's something that they'll pick up and they're like, what is this guy talking about? I think that's more what you were trying to allude to in that regard. So at least that's how I view it as well. Got only a few minutes left before I know I've taken so much of your time already. I want to kind of dive into Honest Ecommerce, because I think it's so fascinating. We were talking pre-show about your podcast and its latest episode. What was kind of the genesis behind it? Like who got you started with that? I'm really curious how you got into that, and maybe why you got into that. If as a time you invest so much time and effort, and I can see it on your website, and we linked out to it, but what made you get into that kind of amplified marketing?
Yeah. Ooh. All right. So let me try to distill down a marketing strategy into 5 minutes. Okay. So when you run a service business, you run an agency. Everyone take notes on this, because this is the real truth. You're going to need 3 systems to scale your business. From a marketing and sales perspective, you're going to need something for inbound leads. You're going to need something for outbound, and then you're going to need a referral network that's built up of partnerships, right? So this one is strictly inbound. This is the content play that we do at the agency, is the podcast specifically, because A, I hate writing, and B, I'm not good at anything else, right? I'm really good at talking. So my project manager actually made me start the podcast. He's like, Chase, a bunch of people, go interview them. Let's start a podcast. Let's get this done. Annette Grant helped me a lot with getting started. She was my co-host for the first couple dozen episodes. And after we really got things off the ground and I started to really actually believe in what they were telling me, we really started to double down on the podcast as an outreach kind of mechanism to meet new cool people, and also to produce content. Like content really works. It is this isn't like a conversation about content marketing, but like within kind of your inbound strategy, you need some sort of thought leadership and content authority, and a podcast solves both those problems and then some. So that's why we went all in on a podcast.
Amazing. Well, I think it's fantastic, and you can obviously hear it. We linked out to it in the show notes and the links in the comments section. I believe it's just e-commerce, honestecommerce.com, correct? That's it?
.co. I've been trying to buy the .com for 4 years.
But it's probably like $20,000, right?
No, it's some guy who actually lives in Ohio, and he just won't respond to my emails anymore.
Oh. That's I hate people who sit on just websites like that, and it's just, no one, they don't want to sell it, they don't want to do anything with it. But I guess, like, because my final question, and thanks for sharing that, by the way, what's kind of your take on like the rest of the year? Is there something you guys are seeing on an agency level that maybe like either concerns you or excites you for Q4? What's kind of that notion or those couple thoughts that come to mind when thinking about Q4 this year?
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing this long enough that we just understand what is about to happen with Q4. So we historically reach out to all of our clients kind of at the beginning of Q3, and we're like, Q4 is next. We're talking about Q4 marketing right now. Like we forced them to start talking about it like way prior to it. So then when we go into Q4, we have like a holiday success plan already in place. We know what everyone's doing. We've divide and conquer, and they're going to have, they're going to have the support that they need. So as an agency, we are extremely prepared, probably more prepared than we ever have been. That's just because we want to be able to help our clients do cool stuff. Outside of that, Q4 is about to be wild. You got the whole, like, people are saying there's going to be another Shipageddon issue with shipping and lead times. You already see the issues with supply chain. People can't get the products that they want. So if they don't have the products to sell, then they're not going to have the Q4s that they wanted. So there's going to be some really interesting stuff that goes on this year with Q4. But yeah, I mean, we're prepared for it. It's a little more busy than the rest of the year, but that's just kind of the name of the game in e-commerce, and we're prepared and we're ready to help.
Absolutely. I'm anxiously awaiting to see what happens with shipping and cost of goods. I know shipping has been announced by all major carriers across the board that there's going to be an increase in costs. So everyone's buckling up and waiting. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be interesting to see if that has a true major impact negatively, or if it's kind of a flat line, or there's still growth no matter what. People are still going to buy. I think my prediction, if you will, is the earlier the shopping is going to happen, like now is the time people are actually still looking for their Christmas gifts and their holiday gifts, if you will. They're not going to wait until that last second. I don't think there's going to be so much last second. But obviously there's tips and tricks you can do to capitalize on those people as well. I just don't think there'll be as many as in years past. Chase, thanks so much again. I know I've already taken up about an hour of your time today, but for people who are need to connect with you, they want to find a ways to work with you or just learn more about what you have to say. We just scratched the surface, I feel like, if you will. What are those ways they can connect with you?
Yeah, if you feel like your business, is at a point where you want to talk to a qualified partner to help you kind of get to the next level, we can kind of run through this brand scaling framework together and figure that all out. You can reach out at electriceye.io, schedule an intro call, and chat with the team and see kind of what's going on there. Or if you just enjoy my opinions on e-commerce, or you want to hear more like founders' stories, is kind of what I like to do on our podcast. I interview e-commerce entrepreneurs and kind of about their journey and how they did it. You can check out honestecommerce.co and subscribe to the podcast over there.
Awesome. Well, again, I'm already a subscriber and fan of the show too. It's an amazing website. It's beautifully done. So whoever's doing that for you, they deserve a raise or pat on the back or all the above. Whatever. If that's yourself, then give yourself a raise. Then it all works out in your favor. So exactly. Chase, thanks so much. You've been kind with your time. Now, friend of the show here at Crossover Commerce. Thanks so much for hopping on and just lending some of your time and insights.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Again, thanks, Chase. Again, thanks to everyone else who is listening and watching live here on Crossover Commerce. This is episode 164 of My Corner of the Internet. Again, thanks to Chase, Clymer of Electric Eye, as well as Honest Ecommerce. Again, you can check out all those links in the comments and the show notes below. And if you're listening to this, go ahead and give this episode a favorable rating. If you don't like what you heard, or if you just say, hey, the host sucks or anything like that, go ahead and let me know. You can follow me on social media, or if you have other guests in mind that you might think that would be good for this format, go ahead and just send them my way. We'll make sure we connect and have them on and share their insights as well. But that being said, it's always been fun to share some time with you, the listener, as well as our guests we bring on the show. You can listen to all of our episodes again at usa.pingpongx.com/podcast and listen to them on your favorite podcast destinations. That being said, I'm Ryan Cramer. I'm the host of Crossover Commerce. We'll catch you guys next time. Take care.